Okay, so let's dive into something. Well, something really significant that's unfolding in India right now. We're
Hmm.
looking at this just massive growth of online betting apps. And tied into that, the role celebrities are playing through endorsements. It's pretty wild.
Absolutely. It's a situation hitting the headlines, and the stakes, as you rightly say, feel incredibly high. It's got legal challenges, this really tragic human cost we need to talk about, and this whole big question, ban or regulate.
Exactly. So the mission for us here is to, cut through some of the noise. Let's try and understand the core arguments, the key things that have happened,
Right.
and figure out why this matters, not just for India, but maybe as a case study for the kinds of challenges popping up everywhere in this digital age.
Yeah, it's that collision, isn't it? Technology, aspiration, big money, and then these really serious real-world consequences.
So let's start with the boom itself. The surge in online betting, it feels particularly visible during things like the IPL, right?
Oh, definitely. The IPL season seems to be prime time for these apps. They're everywhere. Flashy ads.
Yeah, those promises of instant riches, it's clearly designed to hook people. And apparently it's working on millions.
Millions across different age groups, it seems. And the scale, well, some reports paint a really concerning picture. There's this one pretty startling claim doing the rounds
Why, sure.
that 30 crore Indians, that's 300 million people, are allegedly being trapped illegally by these platforms.
Wait, 30 crore? 300 million. That number it's almost hard to grasp.
It's a huge number. And the argument is that many of these platforms are operating in this legal gray zone, exploiting loopholes.
Right, so they're not necessarily clearly illegal, but they're not exactly playing by rules you'd expect either.
Precisely. The point being made is that many seem to lack robust regulatory oversight, or even basic warnings about addiction risks that you'd see in, say, other financial industries. It's a stark contrast.
And when you shift focus from the market to the impact on actual people,
Hmm.
that's where it gets incredibly sobering.
This is the toughest part, really. The human cost. There's a specific claim, a really alarming one, mentioned in a public interest litigation, a PIL.
Okay.
It alleges that over 1,023 suicides in Telangana alone have been linked to betting addiction.
Hold on. Over 1,000 suicides in just one state, directly linked back to this.
That's the claim presented in the PIL. It paints this absolutely devastating picture. Lives lost, families destroyed, young people particularly getting caught in this web.
Wow. That's that's just horrific.
And the petitioner ties this directly to the Constitution, arguing these apps, as they operate, allegedly violate the fundamental right to life under Article 21.
That elevates it beyond just financial loss, doesn't it? It becomes about fundamental rights.
Exactly. It underlines that these aren't just statistics. Each number represents a profound personal tragedy.
Which I suppose helps explain why the Supreme Court decided to step in.
That's right. This brings us to a key date, May 23, 2025. The Supreme Court of India holds a hearing.
And the bench hearing this.
Justices Surya Kant and N. Kotiswar Singh.
Okay. And the trigger was this PIL you mentioned, filed by.
Filed by Dr. K.A. Paul, who's described as an evangelist and politician.
And his core demand was pretty straightforward.
Very direct. Either ban these online and offline betting apps entirely, or at the very least bring in some really tight regulation.
And how did the court react initially?
They took it seriously. They issued a formal notice directly to the central government, essentially saying, we need answers. Respond to these allegations.
So putting the government on the spot immediately.
Yes. And the judge's comments reported from the hearing are quite telling. Justice Surya Kant reportedly noted how betting often gets masked by things like huge IPL viewership numbers.
Yeah, hiding in plain sight almost.
Kind of. And he called it a serious issue. There was also this reported statement from the court, something like, society needs to be corrected, which, well, it suggests they see a systemic problem here.
That's strong language from the bench.
Very strong. And they backed it up procedurally, too, directing that the PIL documents be sent straight to the Attorney General and the Solicitor General, making sure the top legal officers were looped in.
Okay, now let's get into the element that's probably grabbing the most headlines. The celebrities.
Yes.
Yes.
The celebrity endorsements. This adds a whole other very controversial layer.
The accusation is basically that these famous faces lend credibility, right? Make these apps seem okay, even glamorous.
Exactly. That they're luring people, especially younger, impressionable individuals, into what the petitioner calls a trap.
And there was a huge name mentioned specifically.
Yes, the god of cricket, Sachin Tendulkar, was named in the PIL as one of the alleged endorsers.
Wow. And that prompted a reaction from the bench.
Apparently, Justice Kant made some sort of pointed, maybe even sarcastic remark in response. It shows just how much attention this aspect is getting.
It's not just talk, though. There's been actual legal action involving celebrities.
Yes, quite significant action. Back in March 2025, reports say that Telangana police filed an FIR, a First Information Report, which starts a police investigation
Against whom?
against 25 celebrities, including some really big names from Tollywood South Indian cinema like Rana Daggubati, Vijay Deverakonda, Prakash Raj, and Manchu Lakshmi, plus 19 social media influencers.
25 celebrities plus influencers? That's a major move. What are the charges?
They fall under several laws: the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the Telangana State Gaming Act, and the Information Technology Act. So it covers criminal conduct, state gaming rules, and IT violations. It's serious.
But there's a defense being offered too, right?
Yes, the counter-argument reported is that the celebrities maintain they only endorsed skill-based games. They're pointing to older Supreme Court rulings that differentiate games of skill from games of chance or gambling.
Trying to draw that legal line.
Exactly. And some are providing specifics, like Vijay Deverakonda's team reportedly clarified his endorsement for a platform called A23, ended back in 2023, trying to distance him from the current controversy, perhaps.
Which brings us right to the absolute heart of this legal tangle, doesn't it? This slippery distinction between skill and chance.
It really is the core issue. The Supreme Court has said in the past that skill-based games are generally permissible. But the argument here is that many apps are blurring that line
How so?
by marking as skill, but maybe operating in ways that feel much more like gambling, and critically, often without clear rules or those crucial warnings about addiction. They're accused of exploiting the ambiguity.
So it really is the million-dollar question. When does a game of skill just become a pathway to addiction?
Precisely. And it's interesting that the PIL itself doesn't just call for a ban. It specifically asks for a comprehensive law to regulate online gaming and fantasy sports.
Suggesting maybe a total ban isn't the only answer, or maybe not even the most practical one.
It seems to acknowledge the complexity, yeah. The regulation might be a necessary part of the picture.
So efforts are being made to enforce some rules, but it sounds like there are big challenges.
There are definitely efforts. We mentioned the Hyderabad police action against celebrities in March. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, the MIB, has also been sending out advisories,
Advisors about what?
trying to get states to curb the physical outdoor advertising for gambling, the big banners, hoardings, even ads plastered on auto rickshaws.
Okay, so tackling the offline promotion.
Right. And the Enforcement Directorate, the ED, which handles financial crimes, is also reportedly investigating actors and influencers for potentially endorsing illegal platforms.
But is it enough? Because the main arena seems digital.
Well, that's the criticism. While MIB targets physical ads, these apps are often described as thriving in a sort of digital Wild West.
And there was another legal action mentioned, targeting the ad watchdog.
Yes, another PIL, this one filed in the Punjab and Haryana High Court in April 2025 by an advocate, Deverakonda Singh. And this one specifically calls out the Advertising Standards Council of India, ASII, because ASII is supposed to self-regulate advertising standards. Reports suggest they flagged over 700 ads for these kinds of platforms between April and August 2024 and sent them to the MIB.
700 ads flagged.
Yeah. But the question raised in the PIL, and more broadly, is, if all these ads were flagged, why do these apps seem to continue operating so openly? It points to this potential gap between flagging issues and actual enforcement, especially online.
It highlights the difficulty of applying old regulatory models to the digital space, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a huge challenge.
If we pull back a bit, look at the bigger picture. This isn't just a legal or tech problem, is it? The report suggests something deeper.
Very much so. The argument is made that these apps tap into something quite fundamental, maybe even cultural. This universal human desire for a shortcut, for quick success, for wealth.
And celebrities amplify that desire.
Massively. They make it seem achievable, glamorous. So it's framed not just legally, but as a cultural issue that needs addressing.
Is that where ideas like a national content regulator come in? I think the PIL mentioned something like a National Content Control Authority.
Yeah, that suggestion came up. It reflects this feeling that maybe a broader, more centralized strategy is needed to really get a grip on the online content landscape related to this.
And beyond just controlling content, there's the argument about root causes too, right?
Definitely. The idea that you also need to look at underlying factors, Things like poverty, a lack of opportunity, this cultural glamorization of quick riches, tackling those might be just as important as regulating the apps themselves.
It really echoes that Supreme Court sentiment that the whole system that allows these apps to flourish needs a serious overhaul.
It points towards needing systemic change, not just tinkering around the edges.
So where does that leave things right now? What's the immediate next step?
Well, the ball is firmly in the central government's court. They received that notice from the Supreme Court. They have to respond.
And we wait to see what that response is. Will it be a crackdown, new regulations, or delays?
Exactly. There's a lot of uncertainty. Will we see decisive action, or will the legal batters drag on?
And looming over all of this, IPL 2025.
Right. Which inevitably raises the stakes again. It puts these apps back in the spotlight, likely sees a surge in activity, and increases the pressure for some kind of resolution.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening to this? This deep dive really shows a messy, complex collision happening.
It does. Technology, aspiration, regulation, vulnerability, it's all tangled together.
And it forces some really tough questions, doesn't it? Like, how much responsibility falls on the individual using these apps?
Plus, how much falls on the platforms designed to be addictive,
Okay.
or the celebrities lending their faces to them?
And the regulators, who seem to be struggling to keep pace, where does their responsibility lie?
In this digital age, drawing effective lines between entertainment, genuine skill-based activities, and outright harmful addiction is getting incredibly difficult, especially with powerful marketing and celebrity influence in the mix.
It feels like a conversation that's really only just beginning, despite the tragedies we've already seen. How do we navigate this effectively? That seems to be the crucial question left hanging.